Hello everybody, this is another Hot Wheels collector video, and today I've got a really cool one for you guys. This is the 92 Honda Civic EG, and this is a very popular one amongst collectors. I know it's been very difficult to find in stores, but honestly I do think this thing deserves its hype as it's got tons of details for a mainline, and overall it looks very good. Now this was a brand new casting for 2020. However, this is the first ever mainline release of this casting. Before this specific release, this thing had only been seen in the premium lineup, so it's great to see this thing hitting the mainline for the first time, and the reason I say that is, it allows loads more collectors to get this thing, as it's at a more affordable price, and honestly I will say I prefer mainlines over premiums. I personally think you get more for your money with mainlines over premiums, but that's just my opinion. Now then, this specific release comes from the 2024 D case. I would also like to mention that this car does feature in the 2024 Hot Wheels J Imports miniseries, and this is car number 4 out of 10 in that set. I would also like to mention that this is car number 95 out of 250 for the 2024 mainline. Now then, I will quickly mention where I managed to find this car. So I managed to find this thing at a local Lidl store at the price of £1.49. That's a really cheap price here in the UK, considering the average price for Hot Wheels mainlines here is £1.69. Now Lidl stores very rarely restock. In fact, it's about once a year, so you really do have to be on the ball if you want to find some Hot Wheels there, because as I've said, they only get restocked about once a year, and everybody dives on the restock as soon as they hear about it. Now I first heard about the restock in a Facebook Hot Wheels collectors group, and I rushed to my local Lidl stores, and I was very disappointed as there was nothing there the first time I visited. But the second store I visited a few days later had restocked, and I was so thrilled to be able to find everything, including this thing. The only thing I was not able to find was the R33 Skyline, but I was able to find that thing later down the road, which honestly made me so happy as I was able to find everything from the D case, including the very hard to find desirables. But anyways, let me give you some facts about the real life car. So in real life, the top spec model had a 1.6 litre naturally aspirated inline-4 engine, and the top spec model was called the SIR2, and this was exclusively for the Japanese market. This car produced 168 horsepower and 156 newton meters of torque, converting to 116 pound-feet of torque, and this car was front-wheel drive as well as front engines. Now this car also had a 5-speed manual transmission and had a top speed of around 142 miles per hour. However, this is actually theoretical, as the top speed of this car has not been tested yet, unfortunately, so that is what we do think and predict this car would be able to do. This car also has a 0 to 60 time in 6.9 seconds and has a curb weight of 1,050 kilograms. That converts to about 2,293 pounds. And the SIR2 was produced between 1992 and 1995. The price of this car when it was new is unfortunately unclear. However, I can tell you that nowadays this thing has an approximate value of around 2.6 million yen. That converts to £13,500, and that also converts to $16,850 US. But anyways, that is it for the facts about this thing. So now let's move on to my showcase of the Hot Wheels model. Alright, so kicking off this detailed showcase then, we'll first of all take a look at the side of this car, and I would first of all like to mention the wheel choice on this thing. So this thing is rolling on the lace wheels, which debuted all the way back in 1996. Wow, that's a long time ago. And these wheels have been painted in chrome. Next up, for the colour of the rest of the car then, it's all been painted in this standard glossy red colour. It is not metallic at all. And next up, for the tampo work along the side of this thing then, there's plenty of it, so let's get straight into this. So first of all, you can see this white as well as a black stripe being tampoed on here. In the white stripe we have the Japanese writing, which translates to Hot Wheels, as well as the Hot Wheels logo. Both of those have been done in black. And in the black stripe we've got the Honda writing, which has been done in white. We also do have this car's turn signal lights being resembled here, templed on there in orange, and we can also see the headlights of this car continue around to the side of this thing in a realistic look. From this angle you can see the turn signal lights being templed on there in orange. But anyways, that is it for the temple work, so now on to the metal casting and plastic usage. And my goodness, is there plenty of details here. So first of all, I will mention that this car's door handle does feature in the metal casting here. You can also see that this casting does have wing mirrors. That is a great thing to see, as I think it makes this car look a lot more realistic. Great job from the Hot Wheels team there. You can also see that this car's side windows are completely wound up. Hopefully you can also see that this car is right-hand drive, and you can also see that this car does have black interior plastic. I would also like to mention that you can see these mud flaps, which have been created by the black base plastic of this car. Really cool detail there. You can also see that this car's side skirt has been created by the black base plastic as well. Oh, and I would also like to mention that you can see this car's rear lights continuing around to the side of this thing, engraved very nicely into the metal casting there. But anyways, that is it for the side of this thing, so now let's move on to the front of this car. And next up, taking a look at the front of this car then, the detail absolutely does not stop yet. So you can see some temple work from the front of this thing. Even though it is technically a top temple print press, we may as well talk about it here. So you can see this car's headlights have been templed on here in a realistic look. These headlights have been templed on here in a mixture of white, silver and grey, and you can also see, as I've already mentioned, the turn signal lights featuring in these headlights as well, templed on there in orange. I would also like to mention that the Honda badge has also been templed on here in a silver colour. I would also like to mention that this Honda badge is not just simply templed on here, it also does feature in the metal casting in the form of a protrusion. And speaking of metal casting, let's talk about the lower vents of this car. As you can see, they do feature in the metal casting in the form of an indentation. They are pretty well detailed, although I do wish they did go through to the black base plastic. I think it would have looked a lot more realistic. However, these vents don't look bad at all, and honestly, I'm not going to knock this car for this design. It would have been nice to have seen them go through to that black plastic, as I've said, but this definitely does do the job pretty well. And finally, onto the plastic usage there. As you can see, this car's front splitter does feature here, created by the black base plastic of this car. But anyways, that is it for the front of this thing, so now let's take a look at the next side of this car. Next up, taking a look at this side of the car then, it is pretty much the exact same as the previous side. The only difference is this side does have the fuel filler cap in the metal casting here, as you can see. That is a really cool detail, but other than that, it is the exact same as the previous side, so I'm not going to bore you with going over everything all over again. You can pause this video here and have a look for yourself if you are looking for something specific. If not, we'll move straight onto the rear of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the rear of this car then, unfortunately there is no temple work here. However, it is to be expected at this price point, but yeah, overall it doesn't look too bad. I think this thing being painted in red does it many favours, because actually I think it makes this car's rear lights not look too bad, because it kind of looks like they have been detailed, even though technically they are missing temple work detailing. Now then, speaking of the rear lights, they do feature in the metal casting here, engraved very nicely. Next up, in the metal casting, you can see this car's license plate holder, featuring here in the form of an indentation in the metal casting. It's not a very deep indentation, but it still does feature there. You can also see the portion of the rear of this car where the Honda badge would sit on the real life thing. It does feature here in the form of a protrusion from the rest of the body of this car. It's not a very obvious protrusion, but it still is there. I would also like to mention that this car's third brake light does feature here in the metal casting on the boot spoiler or trunk spoiler of this car. You could easily add your own Honda badge to this car using something like Sharpie or acrylic paints. You could easily detail the rear lights of this car, once again using Sharpie or acrylic paints. And finally, you could add a license plate to this car using something like a permanent sticker. You can also see this car's trunk or boot spoiler, depending on where you are from, in the metal casting here, very well detailed there from the Hot Wheels team. Next up, let's take a look at the plastic usage here, and there is plenty of it. So first of all, you can see this car's single exit exhaust being created by the black base plastic of this thing. You can also see this car's rear mud flaps being created by this same black base plastic. And finally, you can see this car's rear wiper featuring in the window plastic here. What a great detail. It's very rare to see rear wipers featuring on Hot Wheels models, but this is definitely a welcome detail. Maybe I should stop being critical of any Hot Wheels models that don't have rear wipers, because it does go to show that they can add this small detail to any Hot Wheels models. So yeah, it would be nice to see a rear wiper on all Hot Wheels models as well. But that is kind of a push, as a lot of Hot Wheels models still don't have any windshield wipers, which is really unfortunate. But anyways, that is it for the rear of this car, so now let's move on to the top of this thing. And finally, taking a look at the top of this car then. First of all, you can see this car's trunk or boot spoiler, depending on where you are from, in the metal casting there from a top view. Next up, you can see that this car does have a sunroof. Now this has been created by the window plastic of this car, and the way it has been done is simply by a hole or shut off in the metal casting, which then does lead through to the window plastic of this car, giving it a see-through appearance. Next up, you can see that this car does have windshield wipers featuring in the window plastic of this car. What a great detail there from the Hot Wheels team there. It really does make me happy, and it makes this car look a lot more complete and realistic. And finally, you can see that on the hood of this car, we do have the windshield washer fluid squirters featuring in the metal casting there in the form of a protrusion from the rest of the body of this thing. And hopefully you can see this small bulge in the hood of this car. This does feature in the metal casting and is accurate to the real life car. But anyways, that is it for the top of this thing, and that is also it for my showcase of this thing. So now let's move on to my final thoughts and review on this car. Alright, so now it is time for my final thoughts and review on this car, and my goodness am I impressed, especially for a mainline. The tampo work detailing is fantastic. I think you get tons of value for money. The colour choice on this thing is very good. I honestly think this colour suits this casting very nicely. I also love the fact that this thing does have wing mirrors and windshield wipers, both front and also rear. Wow, this thing is full of details. And I also really do like the wheel choice on this thing as well. I think these wheels suit this car very nicely indeed. So as you can tell, I'm overall very impressed by this car. There's really nothing letting it down, and overall I definitely recommend you add this thing to your collection. But that does lead me onto my score out of 10 for this car. So what am I going to give this car out of 10? It is going to be receiving a totally deserved 10 out of 10. There's really nothing I can fault here, and overall I am so impressed with the Hot Wheels team. This thing is full of details and it looks spectacular. But anyways, that is it for this video. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure to like. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Remember, you can also press that notification bell so you do not miss new uploads. Remember, you can also share this video with any friends, family, or any groups who may be interested. But remember, don't feel pressured to if you don't feel like you have anybody who may be interested. You watching this video all the way to the end means so much to me, and I really do thank you for making it all the way up until this point. But anyways, that is it for this video, so I hope you guys did enjoy, and I really do hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye everyone.